welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. My name is Sarah Jane. I'm a PR practitioner living in the DC area. I make a lot of content on reading at grad school at Georgetown and life in my 30s living in the city. So if that type of content interests you, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe because it really helps support my channel. I'm trying a different setup today and I have like some mood vibes going on in the background, so I kind of want to see how this looks, and if it looks good I might do this setup more because I feel like this gives like some autumnal vibes back here. So today I'm filming my September reading wrap up. I had a good reading month. I started listening to audiobooks more, which is something that I haven't really done a lot of, but I got like the Libby library card and that's been really great considering that I've been like commuting more into work, things like that. So it's helped me be able to consume more books while I am like still in grad school and it's harder for me to find time to read. I read 7 books in the month of September, which I'm really excited to share with you guys today. I feel like the books that I read in September, they were either amazing or they weren't so great. I didn't have like a ton of just like in between, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the first book I read in the month of September was Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. So this is it's not the rebrand, but if you guys don't know, Jessa Hastings went into a contract with Orion Books and they are redoing all of the covers. In the attempt to try to get one of the original covers, I ordered this on Amazon, but apparently Orion Books has also re-released these books. Oh, hi Cider. She's just gonna hang out during this recording. That's cute. But anyway, so Orion has like released these books, but the paperweight is different than the original book. It's also like a different size than the original book. So when I got this book, I was kind of displeased with that. I thought like, I'd heard that we could still get the original covers, but they're not exactly the same, which made me disappointed because I really loved the size of the original text. And even if you look, this is just an aside, but even if you look, you can see how like the dimensions are off. Like there's a ton of like space at the top and bottom of the book versus a normal book. I feel like they scanned in Jessa's original book and like did a reprint. Anyways, regardless, this has nothing to do with the actual like content of the book, but I noticed when I received this book, I was very displeased if you are a fan of the original Jessa Hastings covers. But that's besides the point. So I finished Magnolia Parks and I loved Magnolia Parks the previous month. And this book, we're following Daisy and it's the same timeline as book 1 of Magnolia Parks, but we're seeing it from the POV of Daisy and Christian and like their blossoming relationship. Once again, really toxic relationship trope in this book, similar to book 1. I was kind of disappointed in this book versus Magnolia Parks. And I think one of my biggest turnoffs from this book was just like the different vibe. Magnolia Parks was set in like high British society versus this book is like about the gang that Daisy's family's in, and the vibes are just like really, really different. And so I actually didn't really like this book very much. I gave it a 3-star and it made me not want to read the third book, which is back to the POV of Magnolia Parks. I'm actually like putting some time in between reading the second and the third book because I just like really, really did not like this book. Which I hate to say it because like I feel like I am just a Hastings fan. But yeah, so same timeline as book 1, but from the POV of Daisy and Christian. And it did like make me like Daisy more because we saw glimpses of her in book 1, but she just came across as like a total butthole, honestly. So it made me understand her character more and why she is the way she is and why she had that outburst at the end of book 1. It just didn't do it for me. Some coffee. I got this mug from Lane's in Sonoma and I love it so much. So the second book I read this month was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This was like trending all over TikTok, Book Talk, so I finally picked it up. Freaking loved this book. I gave this book 5 stars. So we're in a mythical land called Oath. We're following our main character Iris, who is competing with a guy named Roman for a position as a columnist in the Oath newspaper. Her personal life is really struggling. Her brother has gone off to enlist in the war between gods, and after her brother leaves, Her mom falls into alcoholism and it forces Iris to not complete school and support her and her mother. Iris begins to write letters to her brother, and one day magically she starts to receive letters back. I think this is a great book for fall because it gives autumnal vibes with like the rain and the cobblestones. Like it just feels like autumn when you're reading it. I really also enjoyed all the characters in this book, which is pretty rare for me. I found the main character to be super lovable. The male main character is also really enjoyable, and even all the side characters have all like very distinct and memorable personalities, and they're not annoying. The world building in this book was brought along slowly, so it made it really easy as the reader to understand as Ross was expanding the world. And because of this, the overall storyline I thought was exceptional because I was able to keep up with it very easily. Ending of this book absolutely destroyed me. I saw it coming when there was like a third of the book left. There were a couple of twists that I did not see coming, and I was flipping furiously into the evening to finish this book, which is how I know that this is a good book, because I never stay up late reading like that unless I really, really like a book. This is officially one of my favorite books of the year, and I am so excited for book 2 to come out the day after Christmas. So the third book I read in the month of September is Caravel by Stephanie Garber. Now, if you've been watching me for a couple months now, you know that I read her Once Upon a Broken Heart series in the summer months. Absolutely love those books. They are fantastic. The third and I think final book in that series comes out this month, but she actually wrote these books first, and the main character in those books, Jack, is actually like in this series, and you kind of like find out why he is the way he is. So I really liked Garber's writing style with Once Upon a Broken Heart, so I decided to pick up the Caravel series. So this is the first book in the series. It's called Caravel. This is the UK cover because I just think her UK covers are just gorgeous compared to the US covers. So this gave me like Harry Potter vibes, but like less witches and more a circus, which I think is a really nice compliment. We are following two sisters, Scarlett and Donatella, who are trying to escape their abusive father. There is a show called Caravel that is performed once a year, and if you win, you are granted one wish from the master of Caravel, who calls himself Legend. So Scarlett has been writing to Legend for years now, asking him to come to their island to have the game, and then the beginning of this book, he finally does come and have the game there, and so the rest of the book is essentially them going through Caravel. This book takes place over the course of a week, and everything happens at night, which gives it like a very dark vibe when you're reading, and I think really good for this time of year. First, I really like the book cover because it reminds me of The Circus by Erin Morgenstern, which isn't my favorite autumnal book, but is like a really great book for this time of year, so I really liked that this gave me the same vibe. Second, I really liked this book. I thought it was so magical. I thought I was gonna be in a reading slump after finishing Divine Rivals. Stephanie's writing style, she just has a way of creating this world that just feels so magical, and it's written so vividly that you can like see it, and you can like taste the magic, and it's like so refreshing. I love her writing style. I really am glad that I'm reading this series in the fall because it just really adds a sensory element to it. Third is that the ending of this book really shocked me. I don't want to say what happened, but I will say I didn't see it coming. I felt like whiplash from everything that was going on throughout the entire book. So I really enjoyed this book, and I am gonna be reading the second book in the trilogy in the month of October. Oh, and I gave Caravel 5 stars. So the next book I read in the month of September was an audiobook, and my first audiobook of the month, which was How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. So I read a haunted house book last year, and it was okay, but I was really like wanting to read another one this fall season, and I really liked Grady Hendrix Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So when I saw that this had come out this year, I was like, oh, I'm totally gonna read it. So we're following Louise, who has found out at the beginning of the book that her parents have died in a car crash. She flies from California to South Carolina to sort of figure out the estate and the will, and the house that her parents left behind with her brother Mark, who she doesn't actually have like a very good relationship with. I don't want to get too much into like what happens with it because it's just like all part of the story, but I will say the book felt a little flat for me, which is a bummer because I really did like Grady's other book. I felt like the reason I didn't like this book as much is because it was less about an actual haunted house and more about puppets, which I felt like was really misleading. Yeah, it's like demonic puppets, possessed dolls, family trauma, like those are like the three things that I would say describe this book. I do think that the puppet possessing people and is an interesting take on puppets, because like that's not something I've really heard about before. But regardless, I just was kind of disappointed that that was what the book was about and less about a haunted house, because like I wanted to read a haunted house book. So I gave this book 3.75 stars. The next book I read was Holly by Stephen King. This book just came out. I don't read a lot of Stephen King books. I think the last time I read one of his books was like 10 years ago. So I'm not like a big Stephen King guy, but when I saw the cover, I was like really intrigued by the cover. So I decided to go ahead and pick it up. I just want to say I did not like this book. Oh my God. I picked this book up because it was at the library when I was signing up for my library card. And it was like, oh, like it's a new release. It's here. Like and it's free, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and pick it up. And so I read it. Yeah, I did not like that book. So we're following private detective Holly, who lives somewhere in the Midwest. We're not exactly sure. It doesn't really say like her exact location. But she is hired to find out what happened to a missing girl. And she starts down this path to like figure out what happened to her. Simultaneously, we're also following this elderly couple called Professor Rodney and Emily Harris, who look like respectable lifelong academics on the outside, but they're actually like kidnapping people for like a very disgusting reason once you're like see inside their home. So first of all, the reason why the Harrises are doing what they're doing actually is like disgusting, and it like creeped me out, and I was just like, I don't want to say what they're doing, that you do find out pretty early on in the book, but it's not written in the synopsis on the front jacket, so I don't want to like say it in case you do decide to read it. But there were multiple times where Stephen King went into detail about what they were doing, and I just like wanted to throw up multiple times throughout the book because of that reason. And I know he's the king of horror, I get it, but I just like wasn't ready. Second, I thought this book was kind of boring in a lot of parts. So even though the Harrises storyline disgusted me, I did find it a more interesting portion of the book to read, and I thought parts of what Holly was doing was interesting, but there was a lot of other secondary plot lines that just felt like a lot of noise that I did not enjoy reading, and like made me want to put the book down multiple times. I thought it was annoying that it literally took Holly the entire book to figure out what was going on with the Harrises, versus like her friend figures it out within a couple pages. Like to me, that was just really unrealistic. So I didn't like that either. Overall, I just like didn't like this book, and I gave it 2 stars. I think it might be my lowest rated book of the month, actually. So after finishing that book, I wanted to get into a book that was a little bit lighter. So I picked up The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Pennar. So this book, I saw it in New York back in May, or so earlier this year, and I thought the cover was just beautiful. And I was gonna pick it up, and then I was like, no, this looks like a fall book, I'm gonna pick it up later. So I decided to listen to it this fall. So this book is dual timeline. We're set in past and present in London. There are 3 POVs within this book, which is kind of interesting. 2 from the past, 1 from the present. We have Nella, who is the apothecary owner and secretly sells poisons within her apothecary shop. We have Eliza, who is a 12-year-old who serves as a maiden for like another woman, but ends up like learning a lot from Nella. And then the third POV is Caroline, who is the present day woman and found out that her husband is cheating on her, and so she is taking a trip to London by herself to kind of like deal with that emotional trauma. They all kind of intersect because Caroline finds an old potion bottle while she's in London and begins to unravel the story of this lost apothecary, hence the title of the book. I was really excited about this book because this book seemed promising. The concept is that you have a secret female serial killer who is working on behalf of the wronged women in the 1800s. Like, Nella's purpose behind her apothecary is women who are getting beaten or cheated on or any other way that like they're being wronged back in the 1800s. She makes these poisons for these wronged women. She doesn't kill like other women. It is just the men who are hurting women. The whole story ended up being kind of dull, which is crazy because the premise seemed so promising. But Pennar's writing style just couldn't carry it for me. It was pretty forgettable, honestly, and I had to push myself to not DNF it, which is pretty big for me because I don't really like DNF stuff. And I didn't DNF it, I did finish it, but like it was hard. I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. So better than Holly, but still not great. So I knew I needed to like finish off the month strong because I had a couple of good books, I had a couple of great books, and then I had some not so great books. And I was still like kind of upset about the whole haunted house debacle and like how that book did not live up to my expectations. So then I picked up the September House by Carissa Orlando, which this is the last book I read in the month of September, and I had to read it in September because it's called the September House. So this is a new release, and I talked about this in my most anticipated fall book releases video, which is like a couple videos back. I'll link it below. This is Carissa's debut novel, and also she's a fellow South Carolinian, so I was really excited to support her. She is a professor at the University of South Carolina. First and foremost, this is the best haunted house book I've read so far, and I've read 3. I can't believe this is Carissa's debut novel because it was written so well. I was flying through these pages. So we're following Margaret. The actual setting of the book is a little unknown. We just know it's in a beautiful Victorian home. So Margaret and her husband Hal have lived there for 4 years, and every September weird things start happening in the house. The walls begin to drip blood and ghosts of inhabitants begin to appear. By the time the novel starts, they've already lived there 4 years, and Hal has disappeared, and we're not exactly sure what happened to him. We do know that like he had enough, but we're not exactly sure like all the details behind that. Their daughter Catherine, who like Margaret and Catherine don't really have a great relationship, but she keeps calling and inquiring about like, hey, like where's dad? And she's determined to figure out what's going on. So she comes to visit for the first time to the house, and it's during September. This book was so good. It like, I cannot get over it. I felt like I was watching a movie the way like the book was written. This book was also interesting because most haunted houses books, like you are learning about the ghosts and all the creepy things the same time as the protagonist is. But for this book, Margaret already knows all the creepy stuff that's like going on in the house, and like and she thinks it's like really normal, and like you're just kind of like shocked because like it's not normal to you, but it's like normal to her. So I thought that was kind of nice too. I would say this book is a horror, mystery, and supernatural thriller, and I would recommend it. I gave this book 4.25 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the month of September. I definitely had some really good ones, and I had some not so good ones, but I'm really excited to read in October. I just have like so many cozy mysteries and thrillers that I want to get to in this month, so I'm really excited. Let me know in the comments below if you're still watching what books you read in the month of September and which one was your favorite, especially if you have a favorite fall read. I am definitely looking to read as much as I can this month. So anywho, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe because it really helps support my channel, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Have dust on